So I'll go again. We're discussing the first chapter of this session, that is chapter 3 of the Coming of the Elves and the Captivity of Melkor. I'm going to read the quote, it's a paragraph I chose. In the beginning, the elder children of Ilúvatar were stronger and greater than they have since become, but not more fair. For though the beauty of the Quendi in the days of their youth was beyond all other beauty that Ilúvatar has caused to be, it has not perished, but lives in the west, and sorrow and wisdom have enriched it. And Orome loved the Quendi, and named them in their own tongue Eldar, the people of the stars. But that name was after borne only by those who followed him upon the westward road. As I said, I like how beauty is described. I am keen on the fact that sorrow and wisdom enrich that beauty, and that it stayed, even though they are not stronger, as strong as they used to be. They are still fair and beautiful. I love that. That's my quote. Who wants to go next?
I can, if you like.
Please.
Okay. So obviously from the same chapter, but a little bit earlier. So this is a description of the stars that Varda creates. So then Varda went forth from the council, and she looked out from the height of Taniquetil, and beheld the darkness of Middle Earth beneath the innumerable stars, faint and far. Then she began a great labor, greatest of all the works of the Valar since their coming into Arda. She took the silver dews from the vats of Telperion, and therewith she made new stars, and brighter against the coming of the firstborn. Wherefore she whose name out of the deeps of time and the labors of Ea was Tintale, the kindler, was called after by the elves Elentari, queen of the stars, Carnil and Luinil, Nenar and Lumbar, Akalinque and Elimire, she wrought in that time, and many other of the ancient stars she gathered together and set as signs in the heavens of Arda. Wilwarin, Telemendil, Sorenume, and Anarima, and Menelmakar with his shining belt that forebodes the last battle that shall be at the end of days. And high in the north, as a challenge to Melkor, she set the crown of 7 mighty stars to swing. Valasirka, the sickle of the Valar and sign of doom. So I also find the both the description of the stars and the names to be beautiful. And I find this passage to be interesting also because we see the framing of this story being primarily told by elves. That constellation that the elves are calling Valasirka, the dwarves call the crown of Durin, which is of course very important for them as well. So we see these different communities, right, giving different names. I mean, not in this passage, but over the course of the Silmarillion, we see these different communities giving different names to the same constellations and the same acts of creation. And I find that to be really interesting as well, because it just kind of reminds us that, you know, there's always perspective. There's always some perspective from which these stories are being told. And sometimes that perspective is, you know, can be limited. And we get a fuller picture when we hear others tell the same story, but from their perspective. And Tolkien pays some attention to that in both the Silmarillion and the Lord of the Rings. So that's my passage from this chapter.
And those names are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I mean, if you know a little bit about astronomy, I suppose that at least you can identify some. Not my case, definitely. And in general, not so easy to actually see the stars. This morning, I went out very early at 6, and there wasn't one star. And I was so happy because we don't get to see stars, particularly here in Lima. We never see them. And so I think that's one reason why there are many astronomers here, because we never get to see the stars like in other places.
And I think you would also have some difficulty. So like the Valles Circa, in the northern hemisphere, we would call that the Big Dipper. Like that's an actual constellation that that you can see today that Tolkien is pointing to. But I guess in the southern hemisphere, you may not. You have different constellations, right?
I
So
suppose.
so I mean, even if you could see the stars, a lot of these names would not be naming constellations that people living in the southern hemisphere would necessarily ever have seen. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if Mirimbo, you're here to help us with the pronunciation of these stars.
I'm here. Elentari, Queen of the Stars, Caranil and Luinil, Nenar and Lumbar, Alcarinque and Ellemire. She wrote in that time. Wrote?
Rot. I don't
Wrote
know what it means.
in that time, and many others of the ancient stars. She gathered together and set its signs in the heavens of Arda,
Yeah, she made.
Wilwarin, Pelumendil, Soronume, and Anarima, and Menelmakar with his shining belt that forebodes the last battle that shall be at the end of days. And high in the north as a challenge to Melkor, she set the crown of 7 mighty stars to swing Valakirka, the sickle.
The sickle of the Valor and sign of doom. Yeah, no, impossible. Rot means made. Right. Thank you, Robert.
What's the present?
And there's no
present
present.
tense.
I see that my dictionary says that rot used in the past, used only in the past tense. Formal and literary. Rot is an old form of the past tense of work. Oh, wow. Always learning. Hashtag. So it's like worked, made. Interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Would you go next? Next? Would you go next? Mirimbo?
It's the nest.
No, the nightingales come later.
Okay. Where am I? Where am I? Where am I? Oh, okay. The March of the Eldar.
In this chapter?
I like this. I like this part because it's from the same chapter, isn't
Okay,
it?
okay. No, I don't know.
I mean, I thought we had to.
Can hear you.
I thought we had to choose an extract from each chapter.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So from this chapter, the Eldar prepared now a great march from their first homes in the east. And they were arrayed in 3 hosts. Gereny. The smallest host and the first to set forth was led by Ingwe. Sorry. The most high lord of all the elvish race. He entered into Valinor and sits at the feet of the powers, and all elves revere his name. But he came never back, nor looked again upon Middle-earth. Vanyar were his people. They are the fair elves, the beloved of Manwe and Varda, and few among men have spoken with them. Next came the Noldor, a name of wisdom, the people of Finwë. They are the deep elves, the friends of Aule, and they are renowned in song for they fought and labored long and grievously in the northern lands of old. The greatest host came last, and they are named the Teleri, for they tarried underworld, and were not wholly of a mind to pass from dusk to the light of Valinor. In water they had great delight, and those that came at last to the western shores were enamoured of the sea. Enamoured the sea. The sea elves therefore they became in the land of Aman, the Falmari, for they made music beside the breaking waves. Two lords they had, for their numbers were great, Elwë Singollo, which signifies grey mantle, and Olwe his brother. That's all.
Is Tingolo?
Gollo.
Oh,
Singollo. And in Quenya and in Sindarin is Thingol.
yeah. Enamored.
What?
Enamored.
Enamored.
I was checking the pronunciation.
I like this passage because it prepares another chapter when he will talk a little deeper about the different people.
Can't hear you.
I say I like this passage because it prepares what Tolkien will say a little after in another chapter about the different peoples of the elves. And because since he was before everything else, he was a language creator. He tries to explain the similarities and differences between their languages from the migrations of the elves and separations and reunions of the elvish peoples. So this is the first great migration that starts with all this linguistic story of the elves.
Right. And I told you before that I hate spoilers, but Tolkien is a spoiler. He tells you this is gonna happen, but I'm not gonna tell you anything else about it. So in a way, he tells you, but he doesn't tell you. He entices you. I enjoy it from him, not from people who spoil any stories.
Yes, because it's not exactly a spoiler.
Yeah, but sometimes it's like, oh, then he didn't go, but I'll tell you later. Oh, man, but you're already telling me. Right? Something
Yeah,
like
it's telling something, but okay, good.
I took notes of all of this because, you know, Robert, I don't know if you know, but a month ago, or like from time to time, the Peruvian Tolkien Society does a Tolkien for dummies, Tolkien for beginners, and just explaining everything from the beginning. I don't usually attend, and mainly because I'm not interested in learning anything in Spanish. I'm sorry about that. And this particularly when they always talk about, and I've attended, I think twice, one that Alejandro made and one other that another beautiful girl made, but I didn't get much for not saying anything. And but I don't want to understand it in Spanish. I want to understand it in English. So reading and rereading, I'm starting to understand it, and this is what I wanted to do, to understand it in the original language. Oh, Juan Carlos was here, what? But he left. Okay.
Oh, it's in English. He left.
Oops. I'm sure he speaks English, but okay. All right. Yes, it's good. It's a good part. Willie, did you choose a quote, something you want to read? And Thingol is the tallest elf at almost 9 feet, 2.7 meters.
Yes, I just one.
What time?
Before
After
I
the game or before the game?
after one after one before.
Okay.
The one I choose before is that the one that read Robert about the creation of the stars.
Okay.
I choose that, but he read before me. And the other one I choose is this one. Okay. Melkor met the onset of the Valar in the northwest of Middle-earth, and all the region was much broken. But the first victory of the host of the west was swift, and the servants of Melkor fled before them to Utumno. Then the Valar passed over Middle-earth, and they set a guard over Quiviene. And thereafter the Quendi knew nothing of the great battle of the powers, save that the earth shook and ground beneath them,
Yes, grown.
and the waters were moved, and in the northern were lights as of mighty fires. Long and grievous was the siege of Tuno, and many battles were fought before its gates, of which night. No, I don't know how to pronounce that. Not, but the rumor of is known to the elves. In that time, the shape of Middle-earth was changed, and the great sea that sundered it from among grew wide and deep, and it broke in upon the coast and made the gulls. Blah 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 blah. I like this paragraph because I always read in Facebook or every social media that why the Valar didn't come to fight Sauron. If they came to fight Sauron, the air would be destroyed. I don't know.
Would have been destroyed.
Yes. That is the principal reason to me.
That's the answer? They would have reshaped everything again.
That's one big reason to me.
Okay. Yeah, I like the part when I like the fight. The previous argument they had, like, should we go? Should we not go? Yeah, we'll go. We'll go later. And eventually they did go. And this part of the lights, I think it has also to do with the northern lights, I'm thinking. Maybe.
Yes, because the elves were thousands of miles away.
Yeah.
And they saw the battle.
But saw a little, almost nothing, because it says that.
They were like, if I were in Canada, the elves were in Peru. So.
Okay, maybe. Not sure about the distances. You guys know a lot more about that than me. Okay.
And after, well, I am the last, I think. After the next part, one second. Oh. I like the part that read Robert, because I always like the idea that we can only create one great work in our lives, in our existence. Barda created the stars, the Valakirka. Yavanna created the trees. Fëanor the Silmarils. Celebrimbor the rings, etc., etc. And after that, they couldn't create anything more powerful than those works. There is a part in the Silmarillion, I don't remember where, but there is a part where I think Yavanna say that he only created one, he couldn't create more trees, something like that.
I think in the previous chapter, when Laurelin and Terperion are crushed, or they haven't been yet. I don't remember. Or maybe it's later. I don't know.
Fëanor also said something similar.
Yes. Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
I like that idea that we can only create one only great work in our lives.
Do you already have
Only
your one great work?
No.
Not yet.
Wait.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting thought, but I don't see myself much as of a creator.
Sub-creators. Sub-creators.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. I don't feel like an artist, like making something, like an inventor, in the human sense of the word. I don't know. It's it fills me with awe when I just think of how anyone conceived doing anything, particularly the inventions. Like, how did they come up with the phone, or I don't know, anything. Like, how's that even possible? No, that doesn't. I don't work that way. Okay, so there's 3 of us. We can move on, I think, to the next chapter. Chapter 4 is a super long chapter. Not.
I don't like Thingol.
You don't like Thingol?
No.
Why not?
I don't think he was a good king.
Because he left everybody because of her?
Yes. Well, no spoilers.
Is this the only human? No, it's not human. The only F Maya union?
Yes.
It's strange, right? Because it feels to me like they're different races, right? So it doesn't seem natural to me.
Elves are more like Maya than humans, actually.
I mean, yeah, definitely. But still, I find it a little weird, but love it. So I chose. I don't. It's very short, so I think maybe we could choose the same. But if you choose the same, you can read it again. It's no problem. And Robert, you don't need to apologize if we share what we chose. Well, since I'm going first, no, you will be the copies. But I don't think you will choose it. This is what I chose. Maybe you chose it too. And the moment when they meet, right? That is very human-like and at the same time unlike any human thing. It's very short as a chapter. And this is right after I want to say his name. Yeah. Elwe saw her, right? So she spoke no word, but being filled with love, Elwe came to her and took her hand, and straightway a spell was laid on him, so that they stood thus while long years were measured by the wheeling stars above them. They stood thus while long years were measured by the wheeling stars above them. And the trees of Nan Elmoth grew tall and dark before they spoke any word. And that's it, right? It's like, it took forever, and it was just a moment. It's so romantic. So that's why you chose to, Robert?
Yeah, I also did chose the paragraph in front of it.
Okay.
Um,
That way we could read a whole chapter. And
but yeah,
the whole.
I like it too. And someone, I don't remember who, but someone calculated about how long they must have been standing there looking at each other for the trees to grow. And I think they figured it was around 150 years. So it's quite a long time that they're
really?
enamored.
For
Yeah.
me, it would be like 1,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
It feels like that.
Yeah, because the stars are, yeah. But okay, so yeah, I included the paragraph in front of it, so
Okay.
read that one. But now, when their journey was near its end, as has been told, the people of the Teleri rested long in East Beleriand, beyond the river Gelion. And at that time, many of the Noldor lay still to the westward, in those forests that were afterwards named Neldareth and Region. Elwë, lord of the Teleri, went often through the great woods to seek out Finwë, his friend, in the dwellings of the Noldor. And it chanced on a time that he came alone to the starlit wood of Nan Elmoth. And there suddenly he heard the song of nightingales. Then an enchantment fell on him, and he stood still. And afar off beyond the voices of the Lomelindi, he heard the voice of Melian, and it filled all his heart with wonder and desire. He forgot then utterly all his people and all the purposes of his mind, and following the birds under the shadow of the trees, he passed deep into Nan Elmoth and was lost. But he came at last to a glade open to the stars, and there Melian stood, and out of the darkness he looked at her, and the light of Aman was in her face. She spoke no word, but being filled with love, Elwë came to her and took her hand, and straightway a spell was laid on him, so that they stood thus while long years were measured by the wheeling stars above them. And the trees of Nan Elmoth grew tall and dark before they spoke any word. I think this is Tolkien at one of his most romantic. Sometimes I think before the Silmarillion came out, or for people who haven't read the Silmarillion, Tolkien is sometimes criticized for not being a very romantic author. And when I hear that criticism, I just want to point people to this. This kind of love between Melian and Thingol is, well, like we've already pointed out, a love so great that they can't even move for hundreds of years when they first meet each other. And again, I don't know the time frame, but their marriage lasts a very long time, until almost the fall of Doriath much later. So I'm just always moved by this passage.
So I think Tolkien believed in love at first sight.
I think he did, and I'm sure y'all are aware of this, but when he first met Edith, right, she was singing and dancing in the woods, and so it looks like he's worked that into the fairy tale here, and the same thing happens when Beren first sees Luthien.
Yeah.
Right, she's singing in the woods, and there's the sound of nightingales, and
So
he
about the
falls in love with her
nightingales,
immediately.
are they a familiar bird to you?
Nightingales?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they're famous songbirds. They're kind of like, when you think of songbirds, nightingales would be the first ones that come to mind for most people, at least in the north. So they're very musical sounding. And I think Tolkien also does something really cool with that. So instead of saying, he suggests, or he says, that Melian has taught the nightingales their song. And so when we hear them, from Tolkien's perspective, we're hearing the song of Melian. It's like a remnant of the Maya that's still with us today.
I'm gonna play the nightingales.
Mm-hmm.
They're not like that fair looking. So there are complaints in the comments. They wanted a full song. But there are 3 hours of nightingale songs on YouTube, just in case you're interested. But the first, well, in general, birds have this high pitch. It reminded me of Minnie Riperton. I don't know if you heard it. I suppose just one song that I heard from the radio, "Loving You," and she sings in a high pitch. I wouldn't know. Those are it. I don't know about birds either.
There are nightingales in Lima.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, there are many birds, so I don't know. I do like hearing them, but I can't recognize them. My mom always talks about the birds from Pura, but they have other names. What did you choose, Willie?
Well, the
You
last
have-
paragraph.
You have two other paragraphs to choose from.
One, only one.
The last one.
Yes. Great power, Melian length. No, after. No. What is?
Das Elwes folk.
And Melian was his queen, wiser than any child of Middle-earth. And their hidden halls were in Menegroth, the Thousand Caves in Doriath. Great power Melian led to Thingol, who was himself great among the Eldar. For he alone of all the Sindar had seen with his own eyes the trees in the day of their flowering. Finished.
Only until there.
Yes.
Sorry.
I like this part because, Melian, it says that Melian is the wiser than any child of Middle Earth. Pennywise even more than Gandalf, or maybe Sauron himself. Actually, Melian was powerful than Sauron. More powerful than Sauron. More, yes, is correct. More powerful.
Yes.
More powerful than Sauron. And Thingol was the tallest
Uh-huh.
Eruhim. I don't remember if that is in the Silmarillion that Thingol was the tallest child of Ilúvatar. I don't remember if that is here or in the unfinished tales.
Tallest. Here. It's here. It's in the next chapter, I think.
Oh, spoiler. Well, but he was more than 7 feet tall. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Because Serendil was 7 feet tall at least. So Thingol should be more, should be taller. And 7 feet is 2.1.
Yeah, Robert put it here. Maybe you weren't here. 2.7 meters. Yeah, you. 2 meters and 70 centimeters. That's very tall. Well, I can imagine because it doesn't feel human. I mean, you know what I mean. But yeah, it's greatest among them both.
Ah, yes, Thingol is the tallest. 9 feet. That's too much. I think it's a little less than that. I remember that Eldalië is 2.4 meters.
Mhm.
So Thingol should be more than that, but 2.7 is too much, I think.
Who are you to judge what who created Eru created? If he's tall, he's tall. I always like tall men. I don't know. There's a, I think, genetic thing in it that women like tall men. I like it. But my husband is not that tall.
After the next chapter about this, the Thingol and Melian see each other and never move, didn't move for 1,000 years. I don't know.
Mhm.
I never liked that idea that the couples in Tolkien fell in love that quickly, so quickly. I don't like that idea. Aragorn see Arwen and fell in love. Thingol
To Disney
saw
World. To Disney World.
Melian and fell in love. Faramir saw Eowyn, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, but Faramir and Eowyn are different. A little. At least we get to see how the love grows. Also, Aragorn and Arwen, I mean, yeah, they fall in love, but that doesn't mean that something happens, right? It's like he's got to do something about it. It's not just yeah, I like you and let's do it. No, go be a king and and then come back or something like that. I don't remember exactly. You know what? Okay.
Well, you're right that Faramir and Eowyn is different because Tolkien explained that they were in a war, they maybe could die the day after. the day after, so it could happen.
Okay. Just because you are not in love. Oh, you are.
Who?
You.
Maybe.
Okay. Moving on. Okay, I'm gonna give you the chance of starting. Maybe you, Willie, because you're always at the end, so you can start. So if we choose the same, you get to say it. The next chapter is of Eldamar and the Princess of the Eldalië. Is that how you pronounce it?
Eldalië.
Okay.
Yes.
Eldalië. It's a little longer chapter. Not so long, but again, I took a lot of notes here so I could understand more or less which are which. I do love the idea in general in talking of giving lots of names to everybody and being called differently, hence all my names as well. So I enjoy that. It makes my life more difficult, but it's fun. So what did you choose? Or what do you think of the chapter?
Wait. I lost the chapter. Okay.
What is Eldamar?
Eldamar is the place where live the elders. In Aman, in Valinor.
Okay.
And Eldalië is the suffix, sufijo,
Yeah.
of folk people. So the elder people.
So the Eldar.
Elder folk, something like that.
What's the difference between Quendi and Eldar? The Eldar are the ones that went to Valinor?
Yes, when they are everyone.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Fëanor. Fëanor was the mightiest in skill of word and of hand, more learned than his brothers. His spirit burned as a flame. Fingolfin was the strongest, the most steadfast, and the most valiant. Finarfin was the fairest, and the most wise of heart, and afterwards he was a friend of the son of Elwe, Lord of the Teleri, and had to wife Earwen and the swan maiden of Alqualonde, always daughter. Yeah, okay. This paragraph, I like this paragraph because it sounds funny to me that Fëanor is the mightiest, the power.
Why?
Fingolf is the strongest, and Finarfin, the fairest.
There's no value in that?
Yeah, but Fëanor made great things. The Silmarils. Fingolf was a great king, a great warrior.
So it's
He
Fingolfin? It's not Fingolfin?
Fingolfin. He fought Melkor himself.
Spoiler.
Oh, sorry. And Finarfin was the first.
So he didn't do anything but the most wise of heart. Parentheses, Robert, I wanted to ask you about the grammar. I can't, because Tolkien used, like, in modern grammar, I have to teach everybody to do one syllable, mightier, wiser, wisest. And Tolkien doesn't like using those suffixes. He just uses more and the most for all the adjectives. So is that an Old English thing?
Well, I think the at least in this passage, the adjectives that he's using most and more for, they can't take the superlative. Like you can't say steadfastest. Well, I mean, you could, but it would sound really weird.
No, but the wisest.
Yeah, that's true. But he does use strongest. I mean, he doesn't say the most strong for
Yeah.
Fingolfin. So I think he just the wisest, most wise of heart.
And I've seen it in other occasions. And I'm like, oh.
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, it sounds a little bit archaic. He may be trying to use, but it's not Old English. Old English has declensions and endings that would be equivalent to wisest. You know, you can do that in Old English. So I don't know. I'm sorry, I probably can't really answer that. I hadn't really noticed it until you brought it up.
Now you will.
Yeah, I will. But it's something, it has to be some sort of stylistic choice.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because when I was, digging into it, trying to understand, because some do take both choices, but like there are too many exceptions, and when there are too many exceptions, it's probably just the use changed or something, or it's natural in some occasions to say the most, and in others, wisest. But okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly could say Finarfin was the fairest and the wisest of heart. And probably most modern speakers of English would do that. So, yeah, I don't know.
About fair, do you have the discussion that we always have in Spanish, that fair is blonde or fair is justo?
No, but fair is beautiful here. I mean, I think it depends on the context. That's how I read it.
Yes,
Yeah.
because Tolkien use that word a lot.
Uses, yeah, but in different contexts. Like if I just go to the dictionary, the basic learner's dictionary just has 8 meanings for it. To me here, it is just fair, beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, fair. I agree. I think he means in terms of physical appearance here.
Fair is...
It can be hair. It can also be skin. So it could be like the palest skin would also be fairest. That's one possibility.
It wouldn't make sense, right? Because he's saying mightiest,
No,
strongest.
in this
the palest.
In this quote, I think there is no confusion. But in another one, I don't remember where. Where. In Spanish, it's always the confusion that fair is blonde or beautiful.
Yeah, I understand why you think it sounds weird to equate fairest here with palest, but I think there's a cultural shift that's happened. So even in English today, that would sound like, it doesn't sound like you're praising someone when you say they're really pale. If anything, it makes it sound like you're saying they're kind of sick.
Yeah.
But when Tolkien was writing, and like in Victorian and Edwardian, kind of the Victorian and Edwardian England that Tolkien was, grew up in, basically, having fair skin was seen as actually being really attractive. And so you had ladies, particularly women, but also men. There's this idea that the paler you were, the more beautiful you were. And that's flipped now. So it does sound weird now. But I wouldn't be surprised if Tolkien does have some sort of intention to equate fairest with beauty here, and in the sense of being pale.
Tolkien used fair. Let me see.
How many times?
Yes. 124 times in the Silmarillion.
Oh, that's not fair. Or it is fair.
Okay.
All right. And so, why did you choose this? I forgot.
Because it's I think it's funny that Fëanor thing. The
Oh,
only
right. He's just
good thing
fair.
about Fëanor thing is that he's fair.
But is the most wise of heart. That's the best thing you can get.
Yes, but the elves, the Noldor especially, they were powerful, greater warriors, greater smithers.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. I got it. Funny. It's funny. Did you choose the same passage, Robert?
No, I'll go back to in this chapter where the narrator continues a little bit with Thingol and Melian. So he continues their story.
Okay.
So he says, but when Elwë awoke from his long trance, he came forth from Non Elmoth with Melian, and they dwelt thereafter in the woods and in the midst of the land. Greatly though he had desired to see again the light of the trees. In the face of Melian, he beheld the light of Aman, and as in an unclouded mirror. And in that light he was content. His people gathered about him in joy, and they were amazed. For fair and noble as he had been, now he appeared as it were a lord of the Maiar. His hair as gray silver, tallest of all the children of Iluvatar, and a high dome was before him. I just think this is really poetic, right? Because we get to kind of follow up what happens with Melian and Thingol after they, break the trance of that first encounter. And, we learn something about Thingol, that as much as he desires the light of the trees to see that again, he prefers the light of Aman that is in Melian's face. So he's content, right? He's happy to forego seeing the trees again if he can stay with Melian. So again, there's that theme of intense love between them. And his people, the other elves around him, can see that, right? There's something that's changed in his physical appearance. His hair is now silver, but there's also a kind of light in his face. It's like Melian has enlivened Thingol and lent him some of her grace. So I just think it's really beautiful and poetic.
It is.
And then there's this, the last statement about there's this high doom before him. And again, that's a spoiler, right? It's not a specific spoiler, but Tolkien is foreshadowing that Thingol is going to have an incredible career and a dramatic end, right?
This doom word, primarily, it sounds scary, but I think Tolkien also uses it like just your doom, your destiny, not necessarily so in the bad sense of it, right?
Right. So Tolkien, doom is, in Old English, it's the past participial form of deem, and deem just means to judge. So it doesn't have to be negative. You can have a great judgment, like a very favorable kind of judgment. In modern English, we've shifted it to mean something tragic, destruction, something along those lines. But you're right, that's not how Tolkien is using it. He's using it in the older sense of judgment. And the judgment can go in many different directions.
Yeah. Yeah, so it feels like Tolkien writes like a lawyer would read. You don't know what it means. You can interpret it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I always think that Doom is destiny because Doom of Men.
It can be destiny, but it's destiny that someone else is making a judgment about.
You're doomed to die. It's like,
Yeah, but the understanding is there's some other force or power that has determined that has judged that this is what's going to happen. So it's more active than just like random stuff happening, right? There's a kind of intention behind the word doom.
interesting. And when you read this part about Thingol and that he wanted to see the trees, but he saw the light of Aman. What is the light of Aman? Isn't it the trees?
Aman is another name for Valinor,
Valiant.
but it's not just the trees. It's like the whole land is filled with the grace of the Valar. And so just being in Aman means that you're close to the power of the Valar, and that's a kind of light in itself. The trees, the light of the two trees is, as I understand it, is more distinctive than that. It's specific to the trees. It's kind of like a concentrated dose of the light of Aman, because a lot of the Valar have contributed to growing the trees, right? So they're related, but they're not the same. You can go to Aman and not see the trees, and you're still exposed to the light of Aman.
And why is Aman the right pronunciation? I thought no words were with stressing the last syllable.
I don't know about that. I mean, I've always heard it pronounced Aman.
Willie, you know.
Well, I always heard Aman.
Oh man.
Aman.
I always heard Aman.
Aman is the continent,
Mhm.
and Valinor is like the country inside Aman.
So it should be Aman, right?
Aman, yes.
I think people say Aman. I would also say Aman, but I think it's Aman. All right. I'll go then. I just chose, I mean, there are several parts that I like, but I chose this one. It has to do with the trees too, and with our friend Galadriel. The sons of Finarfin. Who is Finarfin? The fairest and the most wise. Ah, you see? That's why he has children. He does something important. The sons of Finarfin were Finrod, the faithful, who was afterwards named Felagund, Lord of Caves, Orodreth. Please help me with pronunciation. Orodreth, Angrod, and Aegnor. These four were as close in friendship with the sons of Fingolfin as though they were all brothers. A sister they had, Galadriel. Most beautiful Galadriel, most beautiful of all the house of Finwë. Her hair was lit with gold, as though it had caught in a mesh the radiance of Laurelin. Laurelin? Is that right?
Yes.
So Peter Jackson failed here. You know, because here, I think this hair was spectacular. And that hair of that Galadriel from the movie is not, I don't see the radiance of Laurelin in that hair. It was lit with gold, it says. I don't know what it will be like, but not like the one we saw in the movies. What do you think?
Lit with gold. Actually, it was, her hair was gold and silver at the same time.
Was it?
It's impossible to
No, of course it's possible.
represent that in
Wait, gold
in a
and
movie.
silver. I didn't see her as so majestic as she should have been. I don't know. She's important, isn't she? No? Okay. If you abandon me, what can I do? What can I do?
We just agree with you.
Thank you. That's
Well,
all I hear.
I saw the Fellowship of the Ring before I read the movie, so
What? You saw before you read the movies? What movie did you
the books. I saw the movie before I read the books.
Yeah, but still, Galadriel
So
wasn't so important, was it to you? Just
Yes.
watching the movie?
Yeah, I don't know, but I can take the faces of Elijah Wood and how is the name of Galadriel?
I don't remember.
Kate Blanchett.
Kate
Yes.
Blanchett.
Yes, I can take their faces of my head because I saw the movies after read the books.
Yeah, but still.
So when I read about Galadriel, in my head is Kate Blanchett. When I read about Frodo, in my head is Elijah Wood.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. But her hair is not that hair. That's all I'm saying. Amen.
Actually, I read a couple of pages of what book? The Book of Lost Tales, I think. I read a couple of pages of one book of the history of Middle Earth
Mm-hmm.
before I saw the movies.
Oh,
And
really?
I was too young, and I think that it was real history when I read that, because I read a part of Alwine. I don't know how to pronounce.
If you don't know.
Ariel. Do you know who is Ariel?
No.
A man who it was a guy who went to Valinor in
Thank you,
the
Robert. Robert saying bye. Let's take our picture. Willie, put your face. Show your face.
but the light is off.
Just turn on the
I
camera.
didn't have a camera.
Okay, I'll put your face there. I have my book. Okay, then you send me a picture of you with your book, Willie. I'll put it there. Thank you, Robert.
Aye.
See you around. Okay.
Okay, Spanish time.
No.
I read about Ariel is a guy who I don't remember what century. Well, in between in the Tolkien history, there was a guy who that in the 17th century, I think, traveled from England to Valinor, and he was the one who wrote the Red Book, the Red Book of West March, something like that.
Yes.
So-
One day, because of the Tolkien mailing competition, I had to look for something in the history of Middle Earth. So I started looking, and there were strange stories about normal people that you could see that they were from here, and it wasn't Middle Earth, right? It was kind of weird. I was like, "What's this?"
Ariel or Alwine, depends on
It must
the
be that.
version of the story.
It must be that. Oh, how cool! And
Okay,
how did you end up reading that?
I read only that part. I didn't know it was who was talking. I didn't know that it was a part of History of Middle Earth. I only read those pages, that 2 pages.
Okay.
And I believe that it was real history.
Okay, but how did you end up reading that?
I found that I found photocopies. I don't know how to say English.
Photocopies.
I found photocopies in the library. I don't know who left those pages.
Oh,
So I
interesting.
read them. I think it was real history. I was so intrigued.
Intrigued.
So I tried to research in the books about Ariel. I didn't find anything. I didn't find anything.
Yeah, it was.
And a couple years after that, I saw the Fellowship of the Rings. After that, I read the books, and I finally knew who was Ariel.
Who he was. Unbelievable. Okay. Last chapter of Fëanor and the Unchaining of Melkor. In the chats, there's always Fëanor versus, like, who's your favorite elf? Fëanor and Fingolfin?
My favorite what?
Elf.
Oh, Fëanor, obviously.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know much because I still have to read, but I mean, Fëanor was great. And I mean,
Fëanor thing is relevant.
Well, I don't know.
Fingolfin is suicide, so
I never pay attention when people are discussing because I don't know what they're talking about because all the names sound the same. So, but now I get it. At least Fëanor, like one by one, my brain starts making connections. And Fëanor's story is impressive. And I mean, we actually have a story, not like we have to, imagine what happened with others. And so I enjoy it vastly. In fact, 2 weeks ago, we had the meeting with Robert and the other guys about The Lord of the Rings, and we are finishing book 4 after Frodo and Sam meet Faramir. And there was a chapter that was nothing, compared to these chapters that I was reading, and I was like, is this Tolkien? It felt like a different author. It felt a different world. It was way too different. It was a little shocking after all the action that we have here. Anyways, you want to read?
yes. I'm going to read this paragraph because I think what is
Well, it's also a short chapter.
Yes. Where is it? Oh. Okay, what I was looking for isn't in this chapter, but I don't know where is it. But this paragraph is almost what I was looking for. While still in his early youth, he wedded Nerdanel, the daughter of a great smith named Matan. Among those of the Noldor most dear to Aule, and of Matan he learned much of the making of things in metal and in stone. Nerdanel also was fearing of will, but more patient than Fëanor, desiring to understand minds rather than to master them. And at first she restrained him when the fire of his hair grew too hot. Grew too hot. But his later deeds grieved her, and they became strange. 7 sons she bore to Fëanor. Her mood she bequeathed in part to some of them, but not to all. Okay, I was looking for the quote that say that Nerdanel was the only one. Nerdanel was the only one among all the elves, Valar, Maiar, even Ilúvatar, that could stop Fëanor.
Oh, where is that? Let's look for it.
Okay, Fëanor did what he wanted.
Maybe.
He didn't care. He didn't care about anyone, but only Nerdanel could stop him.
Can't find it.
It's
Not
somewhere.
here. Maybe it's in the history of Middle Earth.
It's somewhere. I don't know. I believe he's in the Silmarillion, but I don't know what. I don't remember what.
Maybe. Okay. So I'm going to read the last paragraph. Now in his heart, I like it because it pretty much sums up what's going on. Now in his heart, Melkor most hated the Eldar, both because they were fair and joyful, and because in them he saw the reason for the arising of the Valar and his own downfall. Therefore, all the more did he feign love for them and seek their friendship, and he offered them the service of his lore and labor in any great deed that they would do. The Vanir indeed held him in suspicion, for they dwelt in the light of the trees and were content. And to the Teleri,
Yes.
and to the Teleri he gave small heed, thinking them of little worth, tools too weak for his designs. But the Noldor took delight in the hidden knowledge that he could reveal in them. And some hearkened to words that it would have been better for them never to have heard. Melkor indeed declared afterwards that Fëanor had learned much art from him in secret, and had been instructed by him in the greatest of all his works. But he lied in his lust and his envy, for none of the Eldalië ever hated Melkor more than Fëanor, son of Finwë, who first named him Morgoth, and snared though he was in the webs of Melkor's malice against the Valar, he held no converse, I don't know, with him, and took no counsel from him. For Fëanor was driven by the fire of his own heart only, working ever swiftly and alone, and he asked the aid and sought the counsel of none that dwelt in Aman, great or small, save only, and for a little while, of Nerdanel the wise, his wife.
That part. Oh, in the last line.
This is what you were looking for. Here it is. I like it a lot. It explains everything, right? How much Melkor hated them. And why does it say here? The elder something, Eldalië.
Where?
For none of the Eldalië ever hated Melkor more than Fëanor, son of Ingwe.
What?
What does he mean? What is the Eldalië?
Eldalië, Eldar.
The elder.
People of the Elder folk.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Lie is the suffix of people.
Okay. And
Because in Quenya there are more than one plural. There are plural that means you and me. There are plural that mean we all. There are plural that means people.
right. That's right. Okay. And that's that. Very short chapters.
I like that line. He asked the aid and saw the counsel of none that dwelling among great or small, save only and for a little while of Nerdanel the wise.
Yes. Because the wife is there to help.
Actually, Fëanor se aprovechó.
Took advantage of her or her father.
Of her father.
Right? Because before it said that
I think he married her only to learn everything of her father.
Maybe, but you can judge him. But it's a strong theory. It's possible. But
and to have kids.
And the fire, how it should be very interesting to see that, right? That the fire that was in his heart, how he's the what is it? The mightiest. The mightiest? Is that the adjective to describe Fëanor?
The mightiest of the Eldar.
The mightiest. The fire, a spirit of fire. I would
actually, spoiler. Actually, when he died, his spirit was too hot, too.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, I read that. You're not spoiling me, luckily, because I'm in chapter 12, 13 in the normal reading. Yeah. And it was like
his body became ashes.
Yeah, there was no body because it's the fire, a spirit of fire. How cool! I mean, how cool, ironically. How uncool would that be? Okay, and now what do we do? What do we do with my Kahoot?
Next meeting.
For next meeting?
Yes.